Just wanted to make a quick Haru guide and give some recommendations on what I think is good on her because I've been playing her since launch, and she's my most used combatant, so I feel like I have a decent idea on her. So let's just get into her cards first. So 3 basic cards. The 2 basic damage cards can be good inside the chaos with the modifier basic cards hit twice. They actually do a lot of damage if you have that, so you can keep those if you're just looking to clear chaos. But if you're looking for an Abyss save file, so I recommend you delete all 3 of these basic cards because they're just not worth using. Take up waste of space and waste of tempo if you do draw them in Abyss. Even with the 10% anchor shot damage bonus from the potential, it's not worth using, so just delete all 3 for Abyss save files. So her basic playstyle is obviously spamming anchor shot, and the fact that anchor shot costs 2 is a bit prohibitive because it's a lot to spam for a skill that you have to spam to ramp up. However, so that splits Haru into 2 categories, so the 0 dupe category and the 2 dupe category, because if you have 2 dupes you can use anchor shot even with 0 AP available, which actually makes her a lot better. So looking at the epiphanies for anchor shot, which is her most important damage skill, I'd say if you have 0 dupes into her, you always take the combo epiphany because it's just the most consistent and the most damage from turn 1 by far. The other ones you all kind of have to ramp up. It still has a ramp up mechanic, but the combo one, it just gives you insane damage straight away. So number 3 is also doesn't have the ramp up. However, I think you need a really specialized deck around this, especially since it costs 3 AP. Like, it just basically ends your turn there if you don't have E2 Haru. So you probably have to make a deck around this one. If you do have E2, however, I think combo is still probably the best, even if you still have E2, because again, it's just straight up baseline damage is already extremely good and no need to ramp up. So yeah, but if you do have E2, an alternative would be the critical hit one, because you basically can play it 2 times per turn. So even though you have a severe damage penalty from using on 0 AP, it's basically just free damage, which you get an instant refund back to your hand. So, and you could consider number 4 if you built your support deck, your controller deck, around attack cards, which is a neutral card, which is a 0 cost. Take any attack card from your deck and add it to your hand. So basically use anchor shot and then use attack. You get another anchor shot that I just created in the deck, and then if you have another attack you can do it again, etc. But I think that is only good if you have E2 or higher. So if you have E0 Haru, you definitely only take the combo. So the next Haru card, and definitely the most important Haru skill card, is Anchor Pointer. So this basically gives you anchor shot from anywhere, discard or deck. Except for this first one, it just gives all your anchor shots retrieve, but it's still decent. I'll explain why. So basically, if you have a E0 Haru, so sometimes you'll have anchor pointer in your hand and you don't have enough AP to use anchor shot. So that's when stuff like the retrieve ones become decent, or the retain one, because you can. So for this one, the card itself gets retrieved, right? So you don't have enough AP. However, you just leave the card in your hand, so next turn it gets discarded when you end your turn, and you get the card back, so you basically get an anchor shot for next turn. Same with this one, you get the anchor shot into your hand, but it has retain, so it stays there, which is basically the same thing as this one. And also with the first one, you don't actually get the anchor shot into your hand. However, all anchor shots that exist to gain retrieve, so you basically. So I think this one works best if you have multiple copies of Anchor Shot, so it probably works best with the create the copy and deck one, because it gives you more copies of Anchor Shot without having to actually copy Anchor Shot itself, if you know what I mean. So yeah, these 3 are probably the best if you have E0 Haru. So if you do have E2 Haru, I'd say the 3rd one becomes the best, and also 5th one becomes an option, because the 5th one gives you an increased crit chance for you to synergize with the crit anchor shot, which creates it in hand. So that means you kind of have to use it on the same turn. So if you don't have to worry about any AP requirements, such as with the E2 Haru, then this one becomes quite decent. It basically becomes damage for free, right? Free damage for free. So yeah, TLDR, E0, any of the first three. I'd still say 2 or 3 is better, and for E2, I'd say 3 is the best, followed by number 5. So I've gone through the most important 2 cards in Haru's deck, Anchor Shot and Anchor Pointer. So there's one thing that makes Haru godly even at E0, probably the best DPS in the game, not even close, and that is Divine Epiphanies. So if you have a Divine Epiphany, the correct Divine Epiphany on the correct normal Epiphany on both Anchor Pointer and Anchor Shot, she becomes so good. So the Divine Epiphany you want is the -1 AP cost Divine Epiphany, because that just makes Anchor Shot so much more spammable, and it basically means if you have like E2 Haru or better, it makes it even more insane. But it's already insane even for E0, because it means you can spam Anchor Shot 2 times more than normal. So yeah, -1 AP on Anchor Shot equals Godly Haru, and to make it like T0, like extreme godly tier for Anchor Pointer, you can also get the Divine Epiphany, which is +1 AP, which is like, if you have the combination of +1 AP on Anchor Pointer and -1 AP cost on Anchor Shot on your save file, then you basically have like the God save file, and like 3 copies of Anchor Pointer with that, like you are set for life. Like that, you will like obliterate like any content, especially if you have at least E2. E0 it's still godly, but like E2 just makes it so much more insane. And also, draw 1 card is also an option, but +1 AP cost, I mean +1 AP recovery is like just so good. Like combine the 2 together and you have like, yeah, like you don't even have to play the game anymore, because you just have like one side, an Abyss is just always free low. So from now on, the Divine Epiphanies don't make a huge difference, because all we really want is the correct Divine Epiphanies on Anchor Point and Anchor Shot. So for the next card, Power Charge, this card isn't that relevant, only if like you're trying to make like some specialized AoE Haru build, which is kind of dumb because you just use other units that specialize in AoE. But her best ones I'd say are the combo, change the cost to 1, because this just requires her AP. You already know Haru is extremely AP hungry, so this just reduces her AP consumption drastically. So, and it actually does decent damage, like 378% for 1 cost is extremely good. So other ones are not that relevant, because Haru is mainly a Anchor Shot spammer, and that's it. And Haru's next card, Charge Energy, is actually also a pretty good card. Not as nowhere near as important as Anchor Pointer, but still very good. So the best Epiphany is definitely the middle one. It's a flat increase of 70% to all of Haru's own cards. It says by number of cards in hand, but this is incorrect. It's by the number of Haru's cards in hand. So if you have this and 2 other Haru cards and you use this, it will basically increase the damage of all your other Haru cards by 140%, for example. If you have 3, then it'll increase by 210%. So this is really good, especially with the combo, because it basically doubles the bonus, right? So if you add 210% onto this, it'll basically also add it onto the second hit, which multiplies the damage drastically, which just, since a combo is already the best Anchor Shot by far, right? So if you just, and this just synergizes so well with that one as well, which makes it extremely good. It does cost 1, but if you have, usually pair it with like AP recovery like Mika, so if you have the chance to use Charge Energy then before Anchor Shot, then you should always try and do it. So the next best one would be the 0 cost upgrade. First of all, because after you use this card, it's just a permanent flat 20% increase to all of Haru's cards, which again boosts the combo Anchor Shot by 20 times 2, which is 40%. Even though that's not that much, it's one and done, so after you use this card, it completely disappears from your deck rotation, and it's 0 cost as well, so you can play other cards, like extra cards, and yeah, just those are the main strengths about it, like the fact that it leaves your deck rotation and the fact that it costs 0, yeah. And we get to Haru's last card, Lift Anchor. This card is kind of bad, to be honest. However, there are a few situations where you might want to use this. So the first situation is when you don't have any other cards to play, so you have spare AP, which is extremely rare, especially on a AP hungry character like Haru. So you basically, let's say you have 3 AP, and you only have anchor shot and like a few 0 cost cards and like this lift anchor, it basically just free 100% damage. I think this is a flat edition, so you have the combo card, it's basically 200% increased damage for 1 cost. So the other situation why this is not like a terrible card, even though I called it bad, is the fact that it's not the fact that it's 0 cost, because it's basically 1 cost, right? So it's retain, so that means once you draw it, like you lose 1 card tempo for the turn you draw it, whatever. That's not a good thing, but the fact that it's retained means that once you draw it and you keep it in your hand, it leaves your deck rotation forever. So it's basically like you lose 1 card on the current turn that you draw it, but in the future turns you basically deleted this card from your deck, right? I hope you understand what I mean. Like, I could explain it better, but yeah. And that also, the fact that it's retained also synergizes with the charge energy, this epiphany. So it's you should always have the lift anchor plus an anchor shot in your hand, right, before you use charge energy. So the fact that it's retained basically means that you have a guaranteed plus 140% multiplier to all your attack cards, guaranteed from charge energy. That's like the second reason why it's not a terrible card. And for an example save data file you might want to go for, so this is for an E2 by the way, not for E0, because I personally have an E2 plus Haru. So I have the combo, no Divine Epiphany, anchor shot. I have 3 anchor pointers, all with retrieve, so basically that means I can anchor pointer, get the anchor shot, use anchor shot, get the anchor pointer back, use anchor pointer again, get the anchor shot, use anchor shot again. And that's like a lot of damage, even though you get a huge damage penalty if you use that at 0 AP. But the fact that you can keep using it for free damage because you just keep getting it back over and over again is just like insane, right? And I do have the -1 cost to the power charge with the Divine Epiphany, which is kind of irrelevant because power charge doesn't do that much damage compared to anchor shot. And then the charge energy with apply vulnerable, so this is just like a general epiphany that can appear on any card. So apply vulnerable 1 time to all enemies, increases anchor shot's damage by 25% because the first hit eats the first vulnerable, if I'm correct. I think I'm correct. And the 30% kind of irrelevant, but still 60% damage boost when used with anchor shot. So yeah, this is like a very simple but effective save file for E2 Haru. And for the equipment, this one is pretty good. Increased damage of attack cards with 2 cost or more by 30%. So the other good ones are Gastronomicon, which is a blue rarity one, which is pretty common to find. Basically, if you're using a 2 cost or higher attack, you apply Agony on the target. That one's also really good. And another really good one off the top of my head is the one that gives 10% attack straight up, and it has the effect of impairing shields. I think you get that one from the 5th planet. As for Haru's partners, her best partner by far is definitely her own 5-star partner, Asteria, because her ego skill is extremely good and cheap, and her passive is also extremely good for Haru. So basically it increases her 2 cost or more attacks by a flat 25%. So they add 25% onto your anchor shot, which is extremely good, because combined with the combo, that's basically 50% damage for free every time you use it, right? And I'm pretty sure this second one is also multiplicative, so actually multiplies the overall total damage by 10%, because it doesn't have the plus damage, right? It says increase damage amount of pulverized cards by 10%. So when it doesn't have that, I think it probably means it's multiplicative, and this one with the plus means flat increase. So the fact that it's multiplicative, because multiplicative sources of damage are extremely rare in this game, I found, so you take the W when you can see it, right? So this is extremely good for Haru. And the ego skill is also extremely good, because for every card in your hand, not for every card, for every AP cost in your hand, altogether up to 10, you get up to a 200% flat increase to your next card. So basically the anchor shot, but with the combo, it's basically a 400% damage increase. So only for 2 ego points, right? This is such an insane increase in damage. So overall, this partner is just extremely good, except for the fact if you have the -1 AP cost on your anchor shot, so this one becomes a bit worse because you don't get the 25%, 50% with the combo damage bonus. However, the rest of it is still extremely good, even if you have the -1 AP cost. So the next one would be the free-to-play option, which is this one. So there's a flat 20% increase on your anchor shot, which is a 40% with the combo anchor shot, so extremely good. But you do keep in mind, I'm using a maxed 4-star one, so if you don't have a max one, I think it's only going to be like 10% or something. And at the start of the turn, one of Haru's random attack cards gains plus 10% for the total cost of attack points in your hand. So I'd say on average this would give you about plus 30 or 40% flat additional damage on one of your attack cards. But the thing is, this is a random attack card, right? So if you have anchor shot and another one in your hand, there's a 50-50 chance that it's not going to land on the anchor shot. So yeah, it's chance to be wasted basically. So not the greatest, but it's still a decent damage increase when it does land. And for the ego skill, it's an alright ego skill because it does boost the damage of your whole team for the rest of the turn, which is like 3 morale is 3 times 20, because morale is plus 20% flat additional damage on all your cards, right? So 3 is plus 60% additional flat damage on all your cards. So with the combo anchor shot, it will be plus 120% damage on your anchor shot in total, which is not bad, but nowhere near as good as the 400% that you can get from the Asteria one. But the advantage of this one is that it works on your whole team and it lasts for more than one attack. But since Haru is like basically just anchor shot, right? Especially if you have E0, like you just want to use it on just the one anchor shot and be done, right? For this one, it's expecting you to like use anchor shot, recycle anchor shot multiple times. So this becomes a lot better if you have E2 Haru with like retrieve anchor pointers, so which lets you spam multiple combo anchor shots per turn. But overall, still not a bad ego skill, especially for a free-to-play partner. And her other free-to-play option, you only take this one if you did get the -1 cost on your anchor shot Epiphany, Divine Epiphany. So you have a 1 cost anchor shot. So this would increase the damage of your combo 1 cost anchor shot by 10%, but since it's the combo, it'll increase it by 20% flat, by the way. When the assigned combatant uses a skill card, so let's say you use anchor pointer, 1 skill card, and then you use charge energy, which is another skill card. Basically, you could stack this up to 2 times, which is 20% flat additional attack damage on your anchor shot, which is 40% extra with the combo anchor shot. Not too shabby, but the ego skill is really, really good because this basically acts like an anchor pointer on demand, right? Because you don't have to draw anchor pointer, you don't have to draw the anchor shot. You basically draw 1 attack card from the assigned combatant with cost of less than equal to 1. So if you've removed all your basic cards from your deck and you have the 1 AP Divine Epiphany, the 1 AP discount on your anchor shot Divine Epiphany, so this anchor shot will basically be the only 1 cost attack card in your deck, right? So you're basically guaranteed to draw your anchor shot on demand as long as you have enough ego points. And the fact that it does 100% AoE damage is just a bonus. So this is a nice, very, very nice skill because it's a tutor and it only costs 3, right? So overall, very, very good budget option if you do have the 1 cost discount anchor shot Divine Epiphany. That's a must if you want to use this one. So as for Haru's memory fragment, so I'd say there's 2 options for her sets. So the first one is a no-brainer, which is the 4 set 20% crit chance on cards that cost 2 or more, plus the 12% attack set. So that's the obvious one. So you could also go a triple 2 set option, but you can only do this one if you have the Gastronomicon equipment sword, the weapon equipped that inflicts agony on attacks that cost 2 or more. So you would want to go attack set still. Then the second 2 set you want to go is the critical damage attack set. And the third one is when you attack a card with agony. Yeah, increases damage dealt to targets inflicted with agony by 10%. So I believe this is multiplicative. So it basically increases your total damage output by a 10% increase, not just a flat plus 10% multiplier on your attack skill. So that is another option if you have the Gastronomicon weapon equipped onto your Haru. There is another situation where you do have the 1 cost anchor shot Divine Epiphany, so this set will not work. So in that case, you would probably just want to go with a 2-set attack still. And the second set, you'll want to go 35% critical damage of 1 cost cards, because your anchor shot becomes 1 cost, right? So it does not work with the 2 cost set anymore, so you have to switch to the 1 cost set. So those are basically all the options you have for Haru. As for the stats you're looking for, so in slot 5, you do have 2 options. I just went for the generic attack option, but you can also go for justice damage. But I'm crafting attack percent pieces on attack set because I feel like it's more generic and I can switch them between like any DPS unit I want. If I just craft a justice one and I get, especially if I get crappy substats, right? Like this one I got really good substats. I got really lucky. So it only works for Haru, first of all, and the chance of it working with something else is extremely low. That's why I just prefer like using attack percent attack sets. So yeah. And for slot 4, you definitely want crit chance, since we're nowhere near able to cap crit chance right now unless you're like extremely lucky. So, and for the slot 6 definitely attack percent, because that's like the only good option for a attack percent DPS scaler. I mean, if you somehow are like 80%, 90% crit chance already, obviously you can go crit damage and that'll probably be a lot better for slot 4. But right now, for me, since my crit chance is nowhere near 100%, I have to go with the crit chance neck. And I haven't even fully upgraded this, I don't know why, but probably because it's a blue piece, so I'm just waiting for a crit chance with a gold piece, like one of these. Unfortunately, this one's crit damage. So yeah, that's probably all from me for the Haru recommendations for now, so I hope I was able to help in some way, and I'll see you in the next one.